In this lecture, we're going to fill in the responder for the stats command. There are a number of stats that might be useful for an admin, but we've chosen a few common metrics related to resource utilization, memory, CPU, etc. When a user enters the stats command, we want to build something similar to what we did for the help command. That is, create an object and then cycle through the keys in that object, printing out one stat at a time. We're going to fill in this section, CLI.responders.stats. And the first thing that we're going to want to do is compile an object of stats. That object's just going to be called var stats. And now we'll go ahead and fill in the keys. We'll come back to the values in just a moment. The first key is load average. And then we're going to do CPU count, free memory, current mallocked memory, peak mallocked memory, allocated heap used as a percentage, available heap allocated also as a percentage, and finally uptime. That is the number of seconds that the system has been up. Now imagine that we have filled in all these keys with corresponding values. After we do so, we actually want to create a header the same way that we did for the man page. So I'm just going to copy what we did up there and paste it down here. I want to create a header for the stats. I'm pasting that in. And rather than having the title CLI manual, we're going to say system statistics. Now, we're going to log out each stat, but this too is going to be very similar to what we did in the last section. So I'm going to grab the for loop from here, as well as the vertical space and horizontal line that we did afterwards. And I'm going to use it down in this function. Rather than for var key in commands, we're going to do for var key in stats, the object above. If stats has on property key, then we'll continue. We're getting the value the same. We're creating a line that's also a 33 to make it yellow. We're creating padding that is 60 minus the line length. And then we're going through each line and adding that padding. And at the very end, we add the value after the padding and log out the line, followed by a vertical space. When we're completely done, we add a vertical space and then end with another horizontal line. So before we move on and actually start filling out these stats, let's just see what this looks like. I'm going to start the app back up. I'm going to ask it the question stats. And you can see it threw an error, and that is due to the fact that we're still getting the value as commands key when really it should be stats key. Let's try that again. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see the centered header. Start it up, ask it the stats question, and there you have it. You can see the keys, and now we just need to fill in the values. I'll kill this, move this back over to make some room. Now let's fill in each one of these. In order to get the load average of the underlying operating system, as well as the CPU count, the free memory, and the uptime seconds, we're going to have to use a module called OS. We haven't actually required that at the top yet, and so let's go do that now. Var OS, which stands for operating system, equals require OS. Now that we've required that module, we can go back down and use some of the built-in functions for that module to get this data that we want. The load average is going to be available at os.loadavg. That's a function that you have to call. And then we actually want to join the resulting array with a space. That is because this load average that comes back as a return value of this function is an array, which would then need to be joined to make it into a consistent string. The CPU count is going to be available to us at os.cpus, and that's going to come back as an array as well, specifying details about each CPU. We want to just get the length of that array, which will tell us how many CPUs are in the system. Free memory is available to us at os.freemem, and that's a function as well. Lastly, the uptime is available to us at os.uptime, and that is a function that we call, and then for convenience, we're just going to add on the word seconds. Now we can start the app back up, see the results of this OS module. I'm going to ask it the stats question, and you can see this is the load, this is the CPU count, the amount of free memory, and the number of seconds that the system has been up. Of course, the results will vary for whatever system you're building on. The rest of these metrics are going to be available to us in a different package, a different Node.js module called V8. As you know from the early lectures, Node is built on top of V8, but it also provides a V8 module that gives you some low-level metrics about the runtime itself. We can access these metrics with var v8 equals require v8. Then we're going to go back down. The current malloc memory is going to be available to us at v8.getHeapStatistics, and then a key of the resultant object that gets returned from that function. The key is malloc memory. Similarly, we can just copy this down to the next section. The peak malloc memory is going to be available at v8.getHeapStatistics peak underscore malloc underscore memory. Now, the allocated heap used is actually going to be a metric that we create as a percentage of the total heap size available. So we are going to use the same metric scaffolding, v8.getHeapStatistics dot used heap size. But then we actually want to divide that by another metric, which is v8.getHeapStatistics dot total heap size. Then wrap this, multiply it by 100, and then round the result. So math.round, and what math is rounding is 100 times the used heap size divided by the total heap size. So what that's going to end up with is a rounded percentage of the allocated heap used. We can take this same basic scaffolding of one thing divided by another times 100 and then rounded and paste it down below. We're just going to change the metrics involved. For available heap allocated, we actually want to use the total heap size as the numerator and divide that by heap size limit. And then we'll multiply it by 100 and round it. So that's going to give you the percentage of the total heap size limit that has been allocated. Both of these metrics, the allocated heap used as a percentage and the available heap allocated as a percentage, will be important to understanding the usage of the heap. So those are all our statistics. Let's go ahead and start the app back up and ask it the stats question. And we can see all of these metrics coming through. So now our stats command is working fine, and we can move on to the next lecture.